This is our introductory volunteer video. This video is the first component of our onboarding and the steps to submit a volunteer form. First, thank you so much for deciding to volunteer with us. We fully recognize that none of our programs or initiatives would be at all possible without our incredible volunteer base. And so I want to emphasize right off the bat what a huge role our volunteers play in ensuring that we as an organization are able to offer the comprehensive services to our community that we do. We really think of this video and the onboarding steps that follow it as absolutely critical to make sure you are equipped with the toolkit you need to volunteer, and so we can ensure you are as supported as possible in your volunteer relationship with SCN. So now to jump into our training topics, today we'll be going over some background information on SCN's work, as well as the refugee resettlement process. Obviously, there's so much to talk about in this topic, and things have changed quite a lot since the current administration of the U.S. took office. But this will just be an overview. We really feel it's important for our volunteers to be informed about these issues surrounding refugee resettlement, just to have context and to come to our programs and initiatives with a bit of understanding of some of the experiences that our community has had. I will describe what volunteer roles look like working within different areas of SCN and also go over best practices for trauma-informed volunteering. So beginning with our SCN overview, we were founded in Chicago in 2015 to support the needs of Syrian families and individuals coming to Chicago. But now, since refugee resettlement has essentially come to a complete halt with the current U.S. administration, the work we do today looks a lot different than the work we were doing in 2015 when people were arriving. Now many of our families have been here for 4 or 5 years, and we've really adapted our mission and values to reflect the work that we are doing as we continue to support our families. So just to read through our mission and values, our mission: Syrian Community Network is a 501c3 refugee and immigrant support organization that builds community and serves families by addressing their evolving needs. Our values: SCN's values and ethical principles reflect who we are and how we stand as an organization. We develop relationships that make a positive difference in our clients' lives. We uphold the highest level of integrity in all of our actions and work together as a team to meet the needs of our clients and the organization. We value our clients and encourage their development and determination to potentially lead successful, independent lives. We exhibit a strong will to continue to grow as an organization to deliver and serve our community. And as a voice of immigrants and refugees, we champion resettlement by dismantling local, national, and international resettlement barriers and stabilizing and procuring support for refugees. So our work is really best understood by looking at the departments that make up our facets. We have our education department with youth education programs, adult education programs, and education case management as its branches. Our case management is made up of direct service and family well-being programs, and then we have an advocacy and immigration department. So here's our education department and a bit more detail about each of its branches. Youth and adult education both run programs that change throughout the year. And then our education case management branch includes its initiatives as well as these individual client services. So these services include academic program referrals, both internal and external, communication support between family and classroom teacher or administration, guidance through the Individualized Education Plan, also known as the IEP, behavioral health and social emotional program referrals, both internal and external, assistance with school enrollments, registration, and lottery systems, and translation services for school documents, instructions, etc. So our case management department includes direct service and family well-being. Direct service involves medical support, so that's communicating with insurance providers, scheduling doctor's appointments, making mental health referrals, domestic violence advocacy. Benefits assistance includes applying for and helping maintain benefits for our clients through IDHS, so that's SNAP, TANF, Medicaid, SSI. Administrative assistance includes accident reporting, responding to traffic citations, referrals for legal representation, anything with tenant and housing issues, licenses, state IDs, and then employment support. So that's assistance with resume building, assistance with completing job applications, connecting clients to employers, etc. Some examples of family well-being programs that also look a bit different season to season. They've included the elderly program, our work readiness program, personal growth and wellness seminars, women at the wheel, and the teen focus group. With our advocacy department, we're holding press conferences, hosting cultural sensitivity trainings, meeting with elected officials, and organizing and attending rallies. This is all in an effort to be the best advocate we can for our families at the local, state, and federal level. Lastly, our immigration department. So SCN is formally recognized by the Department of Justice to assist our clients in completing immigration applications. So we help our clients through the naturalization process, obtaining green cards, travel documents, asylum status, work authorization, fee waivers, and immigrant visas. Moving on to refugee resettlement. So we're mostly just going to scratch the surface to give you a general understanding of the refugee resettlement process, but we strongly encourage that you continue to stay up to date as to what is happening in our country in terms of refugee intake and to research further the U.S.'s refugee resettlement policies since 2011. Who are refugees? A refugee is any person from outside the boundaries of his or her nation state who is unable or unwilling to return to their country of origin due to a well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or a political opinion. In 2019, less than 0.25% of refugees were resettled, and there are an estimated 70.8 million people in the world who are displaced and might be considered refugees. If you look at the middle of this graphic, you can see that in 2019, there were a total of 6.7 million refugees from Syria, and an even greater number of Syrians were internally displaced. What is resettlement? So for the most vulnerable people who are unable to return to their home country, the UNHCR will screen for resettlement into an accepting country. It's important to note that this process will exclude anyone who has committed serious crimes or who has had the opportunity to return to their country. It's also important to know that refugees do not choose their country of resettlement. The UNHCR decides for them. In 2019, resettled refugees were from about 70 different countries, but mostly from Syria, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Myanmar. Resettlement in the U.S. After UNHCR refers a refugee family to the U.S. government does a separate security screening process that includes 8 government agencies, 5 background checks, 6 database clearances, and 3 in-person interviews. This process may take up to 2 years before a family even enters the U.S. Once cleared through this process, the State Department assigns a family to one of 9 non-governmental organizations for resettlement into their new community. Some numbers to look at for resettlement in recent years. In 2019, the U.S. resettled about 30,000 refugees. For 2020, the number was set to a historic low of 18,000. By comparison, in 2016, the last full year of the Obama administration, the U.S. admitted nearly 85,000 refugees. So the top U.S. states for resettlement in 2019 were Texas, Washington, New York, California, and Kentucky. In 2018, Illinois ranked 9th for states accepting the most refugees. I believe in 2016, they were among the top 5. But since 2019, Illinois has actually not been ranked in the top 10 states. To now look at the volunteer roles at SCN, So SEN has a variety of volunteer opportunities, again, that look a bit different from season to season, depending on what our current need is. Very often, the education department is working with volunteers in a variety of programs. And then we also have broader, more general SEN initiatives that also have a volunteer need, and that also looks a little bit different depending on the time of year. So our volunteer onboarding looks the same for everyone, regardless of which program or initiative you're involved with. The first step is to watch this volunteer video and complete the worksheet. So you're already halfway through step 1. Step 2 is to read and sign our volunteer agreement. We're actually going to read through this agreement within this video. So all you have to do is download the agreement, sign it. Digital signatures are perfectly fine. And then in step 3, you'll fill out the volunteer form. That's where you'll indicate your availability and which program or initiative you want to be involved with. And you'll also upload the worksheet and the agreement to the form directly. After submitting your volunteer form, that's when we will get in touch with you. We'll send you a background check to complete, and we will set you up with whatever the specific training is for your program or initiative. So the training might be another video, it might be reading through a guidebook and signing, or it might be a Zoom call. Okay, so in this next section, we're going to read over the volunteer agreement. So this agreement is available on our volunteer website. You'll go to File, Download, and you can download it as a Word document or PDF or whatever you prefer. And if you are having trouble finding it, you can always email Amanda at SyrianCommunityNetwork.org, and she will forward you the document as well. So to read through, this volunteer agreement is a description of the arrangement between us, Syrian Community Network, and you, the volunteer, in relation to your voluntary work. The intention of this agreement is to assure you that we appreciate your volunteering with us and to indicate our commitment to do the best we can to make your volunteer experience successful. So we, Syrian Community Network, accept the voluntary service of, you'll insert your name and the date you are signing this document. We, as Syrian Community Network, agree to the following. 1, induction and training. So to provide thorough induction on the work of Syrian Community Network, its staff, your volunteering role, and the necessary training to assist you in meeting the responsibilities of your volunteering role. 2, supervision, support, and flexibility. To define appropriate standards of our services, to communicate them to you, and to encourage and support you to achieve and maintain them as part of your voluntary work. Also, to do our best to help you develop your volunteering role with us and to be flexible in how we use your volunteering. 3, health and safety. To provide adequate training and feedback in support of your health and safety. To never knowingly or intentionally place you in a situation that you will put your health or safety at risk. 4, equal opportunities. To ensure that all volunteers are given opportunities on the basis of merit and availability rather than demographic characterizations. 5, problems. To endeavor to resolve in a fair and just manner any problems, grievances, or difficulties which may be encountered while you volunteer with us. Part 2, the volunteer. I agree to be a volunteer with the Syrian Community Network and commit to the following. 1, to help Syrian Community Network run successful programming. 2, to perform my volunteering role to the best of my ability. 3, to adhere to the organization's rules, procedures, and standards, including health and safety procedures in relation to its staff, volunteers, and clients. 4, to agree to the volunteer role as described in the volunteer training. 5, to maintain the confidential information of the organization and of its clients. This includes absolutely no photos with or of clients unless specifically specified by staff. Point 6 expands upon 5, so in addition to no photos, there should also be no exchange of personal contact information with any clients unless specified by staff. 7, to meet the time commitments and standards undertaken other than in exceptional circumstances and provide reasonable notice so that alternative arrangements can be made. 8, to agree to a background check being carried out where necessary. Here is where you will write in your time commitment, so you may write 1 day a week, 2 days a week, however often you're volunteering with us, and then you will sign, and then SCN staff will sign. So we maintain an internal-facing volunteer website that you will get access to once you submit your volunteer form and clear your background check. We use this website to post any materials or resources for our currently running programs and initiatives. So for example, with the homework room program, you'll find your Zoom link here, the link to Kids A to Z, the link to the homework room reflection page, and also resources such as the RAS Kids to grade level correlation chart, also information from like the specific programs training will be available if you ever want to go back to it, and things like that. Okay, so our next section is trauma-informed volunteering. We feel it's very important that our volunteers are equipped with this toolkit and really understand our approach to serving the clients in our community. So first, what is trauma? We understand trauma as a linear experience. It's something that might be ongoing, and its definition is an event, a series of events, or a set of circumstances that is experienced by an individual as physically or emotionally harmful or life-threatening, and that has lasting adverse effects on the individual's functioning and mental, physical, social, emotional, or spiritual well-being. So risk factors, these are things that one might be experiencing that put them in a situation where they are more at risk to experience trauma or to continue experiencing trauma. The refugee experience necessarily engages with a number of these risk factors: having a lack of control, potential traumatic experience in one's home country or in transit, chronic stress, moving to an entirely different system of living, among much more. A common theme is that the refugee experience disrupts relationships between individuals and their families, between individuals and their nation, within families, within oneself as one attempts to acculturate. So these things can all be triggers of past experiences as well as then cause traumatic experiences within themselves as well. So risk factors include a previous history of trauma, social isolation, anticipated versus unexpected events, inability to act during an event, ongoing trauma, or the complexity of the trauma. Protective factors, so at SCN we're working to bolster social support, especially in our initiatives and programs. That's really the through line through all of SCN's work, but we believe that healing happens in relationships, that it's incredibly important for our students, specifically our youth, to have teachers in their lives to validate what they're feeling and to help them navigate how to respond to these emotions. We are not therapists. Our job is absolutely not to understand the trauma or to explore it with them. Our job is to foster an unconditionally loving and positive relationship with our students. So protective factors include social support, having a strong connection with a caregiver, having socioeconomic stability, and access to health care. So how to recognize trauma? It's important to understand signs that could potentially point to trauma in order to respond appropriately. Broadly speaking, trauma engages the fight, flight, freeze response. Memory can be affected, and the language centers of the brain can be turned off. So when anyone who's experienced trauma is re-triggered, they act or react from their brainstem rather than the frontal thinking part of the brain. It's really futile to try to talk someone out of a trauma response because neurobiologically they cannot access the thinking, talking part of the brain. It's also really important to note that a lot of these behaviors with our youth are just characteristics of childhood. For example, problems concentrating. So what you're looking for are excessive problem behaviors or behaviors that are really out of the normal range for that particular child. Also remember that often these behaviors aren't in the control of a child who has experienced trauma, and that the best thing you can do is stay regulated and respond calmly. So some general guidelines for engaging with our community as a trauma-informed volunteer: establish a connection based on mutual respect, approach the student as a full partner and decision maker, receive behaviors as data, and for youth specifically, be consistent and give reasonable consequences and recognize the importance of play. If your student reveals part of their trauma history, well, first, this indicates that the student trusts you, and having the trust of our students is a really important thing. So we want to make sure that everyone knows how to respond appropriately to that trust. Likely it is not something we can fix, so while one's first impulse might be to see if they can fix it, you must refrain from attempting to fix the issue. Our job is to listen and to validate their feelings. If a client indicates that they have experienced a form of physical or sexual abuse, you must tell your program or initiative manager. That might be Emily, Amanda, or Maya. And you must tell that client that you must tell one of SCN's staff in order to keep them safe. So this is also something that your program manager can help you navigate. If you need to come tell us, we are mandatory reporters, so we can assist in communicating with the client that it's not our intention to break their confidentiality, but that if they tell us a secret that might show that they are hurt or not safe, we have to do something about it. Otherwise, we respect our clients' secrets and confidentiality, and we are someone they can trust. But depending on the situation, this may be something that it's best for you to tell the student then, but also if the situation allows, you can absolutely get your program manager to come over to the student and to explain that and have that conversation with them. When you make a mistake, we all make mistakes, and it's best to be honest and to check ourselves. So 1, say you're sorry. 2, be specific of what you're sorry about. 3, empathize. And 4, say you're sorry again. If you get triggered by a student, we're assuming that trauma lives within all of us, within our volunteers as well, with complex histories. So therefore, you may get triggered by a student at some point. Be gentle on yourself and take care of yourself. Eat before you come to volunteer, and maybe keep a glass of water with you if you need. If you need to take a break, you can notify your program manager, and they can likely take your place while you take a break. So this completes our introductory volunteer video. So just to recap your next steps, first you'll complete the worksheet that goes with this video, then you'll sign the volunteer agreement. Both of those will get uploaded to your volunteer form, and you'll submit that. Once we receive that, we'll contact you to set you up in the volunteer role with your specific training, and then we'll also send you an online background check to complete. Thank you again for taking the time to prepare before joining us as a volunteer, and we look forward to working with you.